Welcome to Walls of Sound. Your hosts, Brian Teasley and Ryan Murphy, have spent decades on both sides of the stage, from playing in bands and running venues to uncovering the stories and history behind those spaces. This is the podcast where music meets the places that shape it. And here, they'll explore the people, history, and culture of music venues, how they're built, how they're run, and how they've created the soundtracks of our lives. From legendary halls to underground hideaways, these walls hold the stories that make music come alive. So step inside, because every wall has a story to tell.
We are very thrilled and very happy today to be with the one only Brendan Canty. Brendan was in a band when he was 15 called Deadline that was on the Flex Your Head compilation on Discord. I guess my first question would be, did you ever get to do anything after that, music-wise?
No, that was pretty much it for me. I packed it, and I can't believe I've been riding on that thing this long. I never did know when I wrote songs like Teenage Psychopath that it was going to carry me this far.
Brendan, of course, is a very illustrious musician, producer, and soundtrack composer. Of course, with Happy Go Licky, Rites of Spring, Fugazi, and the Messthetics is your current band, and lots of TV and film composition, as well as that amazing DVD series, Burn to Shine, which I thought was a really inspiring thing that you started.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Being that you have a pretty wide span of touring history, we want to ask you, first of all, there's a lot of shows that blur away because they might be in a more regular spot, a regular club. There's definitely ones that are like, we're playing in an abandoned quarry and these kids put together and ran a power cord off a construction shack. What are a couple that you remember as kind of the most magical and memorable spaces that you played?
Well, I remember in Rome, there was a place called Forte Prenestino, which is just an abandoned fort that artists had taken over. It was a squat. So there were little rooms that you could play, and artists and restaurants in different rooms, and you could go around. I don't know when it was built. It was a couple hundred years old at least, but it was completely abandoned and taken over by kids. It had a drawbridge and giant gates. So anyway, we would play in the courtyard. We get like 15,000 kids in the giant courtyard. And nobody would pay, but it was still really great. It was still like you played to 15,000 people and get $1,500, but it was really, it was amazing. There were a lot of Italian shows that were sort of like that, where you'd have to wait a little while until somebody threw a pole up to the electrical unit and actually attached some alligator clips to the power that they were stealing from next door.
Sicily's always like that, right?
Yeah, actually, Sicily, we had some of our best shows because Augustino would put us on in the middle of the town square, Catania. It was just like, and everybody, because he was so revered, and he is still revered there.
They call him the glue.
The glue. We would just have thousands of people in the square, just in the town square. And those things are really special. I find it really compelling to be able to play your music in front of a really, truly diverse audience of like socioeconomic. So like playing free shows is glorious, and putting it in the middle of a town square or putting it on the Washington Monument grounds, some place where people will pass by who don't know anything about it. I like the Kennedy Center is doing these Millennium stage shows at 6 p.m. every day for free. And they have all sorts of people playing there. And they always have the same arc where you start up, they start at 6, and the people who wanted to be there are there. But by the time you're getting closer to showtime, they end at 7. And then all the operas and the symphonies and all that stuff start at 7. So there's this great cross-pollination that happens between 6:30 and 7, where you have people in evening gowns watching you play with Lonnie Holly, doing a totally jacked up improv set with Lonnie Holly. We just did that the other day, Joe and I did with Lonnie. And I felt like that half an hour where we got the whole great hall, the whole room full of evening gowns to pay attention to us was like, whether they liked it or not, it's just cultural dissonance at its best. It's like, I love that. I know you guys believe in that too. I think that seems to be one of your driving forces.
I think we're outliers. Even being in bands that were stuck in some of those situations and looking around and being like, this is going to be fucking great. And being like, this is going to be terrible. There's little kids here. There's old people. Like, this is terrible. In the middle of Slovenia, or whatever. And this is the most exciting as opposed to like 40 people who actually like the band. This is way more exciting. I remember when Messthetics played when I was in St. Augustine and I had you guys come and that was like a weird scenario where it's like I had a night market and I had that lawn stage. Knowing you guys were playing, it was that mixed audience of there was the guy with the mohawk and the discharge back patch, and then there was old people and then hippies hula hooping. And it was just like, I hope these guys are into this. Like I'm loving this. Get stuck with me because you, after the show, you were like, Ryan, thanks so much. This is so cool. We love stuff like this. And you had referenced the Fort Reno stuff. That to me meant the world, Brendan, because most of the people that were working with me didn't understand what I was trying to achieve. So for you to say that, I was like, okay, good. Yeah. And it was like, and there was people complaining because they're like, this is like a night market. Why isn't there a bluegrass band? And I'm like, but it gave me the courage to kind of keep pushing it too and bring it to Huntsville. And what Brian and I do, it's just like, I think as we get older, we take even more chances with that stuff and to be like, yeah, that cultural dissonance, it's what moves the needle.
For sure.
It feels like it's the only thing that moves the needle lately, too.
Yeah. And I think that there's so much like the algorithm is working its hard out to get us not only to pay attention to the stuff that we like, that we know we like. I think that's really apparent across all record labels and everything. You really have to work hard to get outside of your known audience. I mean, it happens. Like I know my daughter, I watch my kids listen to music and they have really Catholic taste. And it's like they're really getting stuff from all over the place. And I appreciate that. But there's also this thing that happens. Fugazi's second most popular song is that song, I'm So Tired, which is like the one that sounds like Elliott Smith, the most, or you know what I mean? Like there's this thing that's happening where bands like Fugazi or Pavement or whatever, they're having their most acoustic-y songs be elevated by the algorithm to being their most famous song. Like I think that song, I'm So Tired, is going to overtake Waiting Room in about a minute. It's really close. It's like, it's right behind it, which is startling because it was just a track on the soundtrack record. It's such a weird thing that's happening. I mean, I don't purport to have we're not going to have any control over it, but I think the one way to subvert it is to play more public oriented, venues so that you can get more people into it. And also just psychologically, it's good to be a citizen of the planet.
Yeah, of course. Being that you have a daughter that's in a very cool band, and even though you still tour, do you find it that a lot of times you want to give advice and it just doesn't apply to the heyday of how things operated when Fugazi was in the thick of touring and putting out records?
Yeah, I think in some ways it's hard because I mean we were all selling albums back then, right?
Sure.
We used to sell 200,000 or 300,000 records. That subsidized a lot of our behavior on the road, which was keep door prices low. We didn't have to make that much money on the road, but we still made money. In a lot of ways, it's super ingrained. Like we jam Ocano all the time, no matter what, because that's how you come home and hand out money at the end. I mean, otherwise you're just blowing it. There's just a million ways to save money on the road. Part of it is you not hiring everybody in the world to do the job that you can do. Go out there and actually sell your own merch and go out there and drive your own van. And I mean, I would love to have a sound person, but we can't afford to have a sound person right now. So there's things like that, like crew, maybe someday. We'll see. I don't know. It's for an instrumental rock/jazz combo. So, it might not be in the cards. But I hear what you're saying. I know what you're saying, which is like, can I tell my daughter to go out there and like Fugazi always did like $5 doors, 70-30 split. That was our start. We never did guarantees. We didn't, and it worked. Part of it working was that we had a lot of people come to the shows. Numbers kind of make up for that stuff. But it does come down to economics in a certain way. If you do end up like getting numbers of people come out, the equation can change in your favor pretty quick. You are afforded the latitude to like play different kinds of places and charge whatever you want. If you're getting a couple thousand people, go ahead and charge $5. Yeah, you'll come home with less money than if you charged $40. But I don't know. It's like maybe more, how it is when you put on a show, you're just doing that balance. You're like, like I know 100 people are going to come to the show, but I don't know that 200 people are going to come to the show. So how do we get that other 200 people to come to the show? Charging less? Do that? I don't know. I mean, you guys are better at that than I am, I have to say.
I think about it a lot because some of the larger shows we do with some of the larger corporate promoter stuff, there's an argument before the show even goes on sale, they set up like a Groupon or a 2-for-1. There's all these mechanisms to kind of, dynamic pricing and stuff like that to test the appetite. But it's like that whole thing of, wait a minute. So you're assuming that there's a group of people that are just looking at Groupon for that cheap experience. And then there's that but it's just like, I fight it tooth and nail. This just means you're not pricing things appropriately. And then you're using these mechanisms that just feel tacky.
Well, I see a lot of people like Midnight Oil. I think Midnight Oil were coming back. All the scalpers bought all the tickets. And then if you wanted a ticket, but just before the show, you could buy one for $5 on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were insanely elevated, and then immediately it was clear that they had overbought and they were just dumping them on the market. All that stuff is so confusing. And then the fact that you go online and look for a ticket and you are automatically taken to SeatGeek or something like that actually is a secondary seller. And so you're immediately like, well, I know this show's not sold out, but why is Mary Timony selling a ticket for $80? And she's like, oh, she's not. You can buy it over here for $25. People must buy those tickets all the time.
It's heartbreaking.
I mean, I think there should be some level of legislation about that. I mean, I know people are trying. Somebody wrote me about testifying before Congress about that, and I said yes, but then they haven't rescheduled because they had. I can't remember who's doing that, but who's sponsoring that. You know better than I do because you deal with it every day. I just deal with it as a band because I'm just occasionally I'll get asked to do a $30 ticket, which is, I know, probably really cheap in your department, but for us, I'm I don't really want to crack that limit. I'll do a 20, occasionally do a 25, but I don't really want to crack 30 before I have to. I don't, because as soon as I go up, people are going to be like, what happened to $5 doors? Just waiting for some motherfucker to come out.
Your path taunts you. Real quick, as an aside, because you brought them up, is I saw that Midnight Oil tour. They've always been a tremendous live band. And there's that song that they put on the single that's the anti-nukes in Australia called Hercules.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a part in it where they kind of break down and get really quiet. And then Peter starts singing, "This is something I will remember."
Yeah.
And what was weird about it was, I know this is cheesy, but it was so powerful. It's at that moment, it wasn't about, we'll remember nukes coming to Australia. It's about all these people that have followed the band for all these years. It's this is what we'll remember. It was amazing.
I'm getting chills you talking about it because I saw their last U.S. show ever here in D.C. and I felt that way the whole show. I was I love this band so much and I'm so proud to be here, as they sign off, man. I saw them so much back in the day and they were incredible back then. They were better on their last show. They had all these fans come on stage that have been with them forever. And it was in the worst venue. It was in a casino. You have to go through the food court and pass the casino entrance to get to this room. And then the room is actually great. It's totally kick-ass. It sounds great. And they just destroyed it. I was like, God, kudos to you for fucking making this work.
That was probably a pretty high-paying gig.
I hope so.
You want that for them on the way up, too. It's get the big check, you deserve whatever's coming to you.
Not to go too far down the Midnight Oil rabbit hole, but there's a video from their last record where it speeds up toward the last fourth of the song and it starts showing all the marches that they had been in, all the protested that they had, all the benefits they had played. And I made this connection that I never had made before. And I was like, Fugazi kind of operated like Midnight Oil in a lot of ways, as far as the extent of playing things and supporting things and doing things that they believe in personally. That was weird. I never made that connection between those two bands before.
No, we were huge fans of that band. Yeah, or I know I was, Guy was. Like I say, we would go see them. I never met them though. We were never pals. They were older than we were, and Peter was in the a legislator.
Of course, yeah.
They were, they were kind of late 70s, weren't they?
Yeah.
By the 80s, when Red Sails in the Sunset came out, I was like, oh, this is an incredible record. I mean, just the sound of it and the drumming and Kosciuszko and all those songs are just outrageous. And then they were huge. And then they became huge. And they had a hit and became huge. God bless them. For a band as weird as they were, they took it a long way. But the politics, they were a seriously political band. There were a lot of seriously political bands. Nothing that Fugazi did was in a vacuum.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we were like, we were down protesting apartheid at the South African embassy. Yes, we were fighting the war, but there were thousands of people with us at those marches and thousands of bands. And there was other bands on those bills. None of it happened because we were just standing out in front of everybody. We were part of a scene. We were part of a community of people. Nothing happens. No great bands happen in a vacuum. They're all like members of a scene. It's just like our memories get distilled into these individual prime mover moments, like everybody thinks one person did something, and maybe one person did do more than other people in a certain way, but really they become symbols of a movement more than anything. We were just honestly just like reacting to the times, to the things that we felt like honestly needed to be dealt with politically. We were lucky enough to be drawing enough people that people for protests, like people would say, well, let's throw our weight behind this as a cause, or let's throw our weight behind this. And then that would help bring people out to these events. But the cross-pollination between like the political and protest community and the music community, like that all has to continue. Not all the people who were organizing those events are musicians, and not all musicians are going to be good at organizing events. I'm sure you all guys know that better than anybody.
Speaking of the tapestry of all things are connected in the end, and being that we're talking so much about musical spaces and live touring, what were all the places you were going to as a teenager in DC to see shows?
Deadline first played on somebody's balcony in an apartment building. That got shut down within 15 minutes. That was our first show. Our favorite spaces initially was DC Space and 930 Club. Like those two had, DC Space was always, sort of everybody's first show. But we also did have Fort Reno back then. Like people did play Fort Reno. So we had Fort Reno for the free shows, and that was oftentimes a lot of people's first or second show. DC Space was this room that you could rent. I think my brain says that we rented the room for $50. Wow. That's what I something like that. It was insanely cheap, and they had a couple wedges if you were just doing a poetry reading. But if you needed more PA, you could bring in a PA, and our friend Gus would bring in his PA for $100. And so then you're in the whole $130, and you could sell. I think the max capacity was, not more than 200, but it was like 140 people or something like that, 150 people. And that allowed for a lot of beautiful moments to occur, because it was the price of admission was so low. The overhead was so low. They brought in district curators, and Bill Worrell would bring in jazz routinely, like some of the great, like Lester Bowie's Jazz Fantasy, and Steve Lacy would bring his sextet over from Paris, and they do 2 shows a night. So I saw a lot of jazz in those rooms, which was so totally wild. And again, they're all ages. Just a really intimate, all ages room that everybody loved dearly. It's one of our great losses that we don't have that room. We do have other places that behave similarly, but the idea that you would have a room that didn't have like a high overhead, but also had a designated booker. Cynthia Connolly booked it for a long time. Then a bunch of other different people, and they had that room booked every night. Something was going on in that room every night. So you had poetry readings, comedy, a theater group, rock bands, goth bands, performance art, people like pissing in cat boxes and putting themselves into like boxes, all sorts of stuff like that. So that room continues the memories of it inspire me that really you need the vessel of a space to create those moments where people can witness other people's art straight up. 930 Club was always you'd kind of arrived if you played 930 Club. They were also, certainly if you headlined 930 Club, you were doing really well. And it was just a 199 capacity, but 425 realistically, or whatever. They would cram people in there. One of the things that I really loved about the 930 Club is that they would have local opening bands all the time. It wasn't yet the practice that people would bring an opening band with them everywhere. And so we were always getting like Rites of Spring would open up for the Minutemen, or the Butthole Surfers, or whoever it was that was coming through. And those gigs were, in my memory, some of the best of my life, because we got to hang out in the dressing room with Mike Watt and D. Boone, and tell them how much we love them. Or like Deadline, first time Deadline played there, we were opening for Flipper on their generic tour, which is like, that was incredible. And Bruce pissed off made fun of straight edge, so everybody left. And then our singer jumped in the audience and broke his arm because nobody was there.
My first show there was playing with the Mekons. The biggest memory of it is having one of those crazy large rats that would hang out in that alleyway.
Oh yeah, insane.
Scare John Langford half to death.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
I don't know. Yeah.
And 930 Club is now J. Crew, or that space of the J. Crew. The whole place is completely gussied up and totally gentrified. But you know who's still there? Those fucking rats. Those rats. Those
what
rats
does that say about humanity?
Oh my God. They're like, oh, this place is much nicer now. They're so happy. The rats.
Well, I think especially from what I gleaned from your scene and how that inspired me at a certain age, it was always the all ages thing was something that was so ingrained to me to be so important. And this is something like Brian and I have talked about. I think like the older I get, the more important it seems in that way of beyond just having kids, but just like in running music venues and spaces. The question for you is, as you tour, because you're actively touring still and you're seeing, do you still see the push towards like having those spaces, the inspiration? Because the independent venue scene out there is being crushed, right?
Yeah.
You're finding less and less of these really cool spots like Brian running the Saturn, or like these really, oh fuck, these people get it. There's a certain philosophy and behind it all, but it's like that all ages thing. It's like, I don't know if this crushing of in and consolidation and gentrification, is that creating like a wellspring of people? Cause I think back to like what I got from you guys and my inspiration growing up in Daytona Beach, Florida, where it's all like metal bars or strip bars. I couldn't even go see a show when I was like a kid. So what I did, I had my dad take me to all these hotels. They finally agreed to rent me a conference room at this Ramada Inn for $100. And I threw like a festival with all these bands I had met throughout Florida. And that was like, we can do this, you guys. And everyone's welcome. And it was like, that was the beginning of it. Do you see that? Is there like optimism in there, or does it feel like, what are you seeing out there as far as that goes?
I mean, it's city by city, honestly.
Yeah. DC is such a unique.
We're lucky because legislatively we're allowed to do it here. But I mean, there are still places where they just make it really hard. And then there's places like New York where my daughter played the Bowery Ballroom and she's 16 and a bunch of other people wanted to bring their kids. And I didn't realize this, but you can bring kids if they're accompanied by an adult,
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't even know that till the day of. So like when we play there, I'll try to make that as clear as possible, because when we have kids coming out, it's a huge deal. We have, like in DC, we still have lots of like 9-year-olds, and come out. And I'm like, this is the best. It's so cool. I love that so much. But a town like Seattle is really hard to do it. I mean, they have Project Vera is doing all ages shows, and that's great. But it's every other venue. It's really, or almost all the other venues are 21 and up. And 21 and up is a really high bar. Like that's like, I think they should lower the drinking age to 18, and they should at least allow 18-year-olds in all these places. But I know that'll never happen. But that's just my dream. Is it 21 and up in Alabama?
It depends on if, you serve food, and we're 18 and up at Saturn. And we'll occasionally, if we can end the show early, we'll occasionally bend that a bit.
And would they let you have accompanied minors in there at all, or not?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly way less of a risk than like just outright advertising that it's all ages, which is kind of a shame.
It's wild in Texas. I can buy my son a beer at any age.
Did you know that?
Isn't that wild? That's like in the books. My son went to the University of Texas, and they were like, yeah, you can, if you're his dad, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, well, all right.
What if you're just the cool dad buying all the kids beer? I think there's still plenty of those.
Yeah, there's that. I'm that guy too.
Fugazi played the Vera in Groningen, right? Did you guys ever play? Yeah.
The original Vera? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the first places that I saw like, it doesn't have to work like a rental hall or a proper venue. You can have this kind of communal type experience where the people care so much about. That was a real game-changing place for me.
Yeah, well, that's what Vera in Seattle is based on. Yeah, they're lovely. I play there every third show or so when I'm in Seattle.
It's interesting when you have something that's so legendary where it gets kind of franchised out, or second room or things like that. It's it's hard to recapture that original magic sometimes, you know?
It's a perfectly nice room. We have good performances there, a good show. And some people do come and like it. It's just it's just a tough choice because it's like you like to play in places where people want to go. So anytime I call, I'm like, should we do this or sometimes it's super clear. You're like, do we do a city winery
Yeah.
or the local place? And it's like, duh, like those are easy, but I don't know all the venues that are happening across the country, but so our booking agent will present me with a problem and I'll call my homies in each town if I have a problem and try to figure it out independently. I do kind of default to playing different places, like not playing the same place every time. I played Zebulon 4 times this year in LA.
Yeah.
And it's my favorite place to play.
Great.
But I'm like, this time let's just try something different. And not because I'm sick of Zebulon, just because I need to you have to kind of keep it fresh, a little bit in your own head.
Yeah, to see 4 different walls every once in a while is good.
Yeah, I'll be back at Zebulon next year. I know, because they're the coolest people on the planet.
It's crazy when you really think about the size that Fugazi was. I think about the show that we did for you guys in '92 in Birmingham at Tuxedo Junction.
Oh yeah,
which was a abandoned, rundown jazz club that was from the 20s to the 50s. But in the early 90s, it was completely falling apart. And it was all kinds of hazards of all sorts. And to me, I can't imagine. In fact, I used to be the kid with the PA back then that would always do sound there. And the fact the telephone pole outside is kind of still crooked from when I hit it with a van one time unloading PA gear. Like a band that would draw thousands of people playing someplace like that now, it just seems, maybe it's happening and I just don't know. But to me, a band that's doing 2,000-3,000 people is like a sizable band that's going to have a crazy rider, it's crazy tech requirements, crazy management, like a whole bevy of infrastructure. And how you guys did it back then was rare for then, but unheard of for now.
Honestly, we were in it for the longevity. I mean, I think those bands you're talking about that have the big writers and all that stuff, maybe I'm wrong, but there's lots of stories where they're not going to come home with any money, where they just everybody's just blowing it all on the road because they need all these different things, and we were really trying to make it make sense for all of us, and for the audience, I mean, keeping the prices down was a huge part of it. And that's how you did it. But there is also this bond of trust that has to happen with your promoters, back then, which was this no guarantee 70-30 split thing, which was nobody's going to lose money. It allowed Ian to insert himself into the actual show process enough to say, okay, well, why is it costing? Why do you have a $5,000 overhead on this? Let's talk about how much you're paying for those lights. Let's talk about how much you're paying for the sound system. Let's talk about if it's that room's too expensive, let's move it to the YMCA, because we know the kids are going to show up, right? So let's just find it. Let's make it work within the parameters to which we are comfortable with, basically.
Yeah, and I think that the exciting part about that too, that's missing lately, is that there's an element of oh shit, what is this? The whole experience there was the show and there was going to see Fugazi, but there was holy shit, we could have died at Tuxedo Junction, or no one died. There's always this element, it's not just of danger, but there's just such a rawness. And to your point, it's hey, this room is just way overpriced, way over-engineered. It makes everyone feel a little uncomfortable. Let's go to this weird warehouse down the street. Right. And everybody's like, oh shit, this is going to get wild. But that's where memories are made too. And I think for the times I saw Fugazi, the cooler the place, the more wow, no one's ever even thought about doing a show here. That. Yeah. They're wow.
That's something that I'm super proud of. A lot of the stuff and a lot of the, that famous picture of Guy climbing through the basketball hoop was that was a gym, in Philadelphia. Or we played a parking garage or wherever, wherever it could happen, it did happen. I'm hesitant to say that's not happening still, because I'm sure it's happening out there. It's just not happening to me.
Yeah, we're old and we're out of it. We don't know.
Exactly. Occasionally I get invited down to rooms and it'd be somebody's so-and-so's playing. It's usually Ray, the drummer for Snail Mail. will call me up and he'll say, so and so's playing. I really think you should come down to the show. I think you're going to dig it, blah, blah, blah. And it'd be a show he's promoting. And it's at St. Stephen's Church or something like that. And it's sold out weeks in advance and just totally same kids going nuts, swinging from the rafters, the same setup. Like, I'm like, oh my God, there's like the Glenn Friedman guy and there's the, taking pictures and that, like, it all feels the same. But it's like I feel like I'm an out of body experience because I'm like, this is like so my reality in 1986. It's like happening now.
That's beautiful.
And so it is. So it makes me think. And Robert Hunter, the Dead lyricist, said that in a book. Somebody asked him, and they were like, "Aren't you sad that it's not still happening?" He goes, "Oh man, it's still happening. It's just not happening. It's just not happening to me."
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true. You just have to have faith.
Yeah.
Then all that spirit of DIY and the spirit of independence and all this stuff, like kids and these kids, my daughter, and her crew, there's still hardcore shows being thrown in Mexican restaurants like every weekend. So where are you going? I'm going to a record release. I'm like, and like where 5 bands are playing before 9 p.m. because they have to serve food.
Yeah.
Like there's just, it is, trust me, you have to trust me in this.
Yeah.
But that bond is not stopping. It is like those kids love it. They love
It's awesome.
having agency. They love playing for each other. That's the thing. It's like that, the power of a bunch of 16-year-olds playing for other 16-year-olds is a beautiful thing to watch, man. I feel so lucky to be able to be a part of that.
It always finds a way. It really does.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God.
Since you referenced the basketball in the gymnasium, I have to confess something to you. I wrote a farcical comedy article in Chunklet many, many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
That was an expose about an anonymous Fugazi roadie that was a plant and would do things like that. It was totally scripted for this guy to be like an audience member, but he would spit on stage and the band would have to stop and talk to the guy. Or the band told me tonight to knock over a small kid. And one of the things was, if people really knew, we lowered the basketball goal down lower than regulation, so it was easier to get it.
That's funny. My son used to make me take him up to this court up in Bethesda so he could dunk. Well, it was on it was like a 5-foot hoop. He just wanted to dunk. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing the career you've had, and I know you're still this. I can't wait to see the Messthetics with James. That record is incredible.
It really is.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're having great shows. I love playing with James and Anthony together. It's like totally magic, and I just sit back there and watch.
Yeah, and the Messthetics show Saturn was mesmerizing, really incredible.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
I'm
sorry we didn't come down there. We played Atlanta.
That's the thing sometimes here about both Huntsville and Birmingham. A lot of times people will come to Atlanta, maybe they'll go to Nashville, and at best they'll play one other city in the Deep South. So really, we're fighting against Memphis and Chattanooga and New Orleans or Jackson. Rarely do people spend more than 3 days in the South, which is something also you guys did. Is like you guys would do long enough tours where you get to hit those secondary and tertiary markets.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you just don't see bands take the time to stop by the Kalamazoos of the world or whatever.
We're playing Kalamazoo.
Nice. There you go. Full circle.
In about 3 weeks.
That's a good plug. Full circle.
Yeah, I know. Did you intend to do that?
No, I wish I was that smart. Again, we're from Alabama. Ryan's actually from Florida. So
yeah. Way cooler.
I love the South, and I would kill to come down that way. So we'll find an excuse to come through there. How big is your stadium? It's like 13,000.
8,000.
8,000.
Yeah.
No big deal.
We'll come down when we can fill that motherfucker up.
We'll do a burn to shine. No, we won't do a burn to shine. That's the most frustrating thing about both here at this scale and with Saturn is after playing almost 3,000 shows myself, I was like, I'm going to make it make sense one time. I'm going to have an overnight apartment. I'm going to have a super easy load in. I'm going to have a very attentive staff. And it still can't recreate that vibe of like a burn to shine where you're like, no, let's get a band to play in a random house that's about to breakdown. Those are the things that are really magical that you've done so much of and been such a part of influencing people's lives, especially in the live touring industry and, with your playing too. Like Fugazi was, I said this to somebody not that long ago, but Fugazi was such a rare band because being that my age, I've always classified things based on those great late 60s classic rock bands. And to me, I always classified the world of a rock band as a Who type band or a Zeppelin type band. The Who meaning you had 4 individual members that were all competing for attention. They're like almost fighting against each other. And when it's amazing, it's insane. And when it's not, it can be just nuts and shambles. But in Zeppelin, kind of like the Sherman tank coming over the hill as one fortified unit. And you guys were kind of both of those great things at one time.
I was wondering how you were going to pull this out.
No, it was
because
like,
I feel like Guy and I were in the Who, and Ian and Joe were in the Zeppelin.
And maybe maybe I'm not analyzing where it was actually just 50-50, but it was so rare like that, and those are like such defining special shows, and it's so cool that you've passed it on to your daughter. It's got to be cool to have a dad with the history that you do.
I think she probably appreciates my skill at Pro Tools more than anything.
Pre-recording all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
I get a good sound on her vocal, and that's all she gives a shit about. No.
That's fair. You've seen so much. Is there something that stands out that was like, not like worst experience, but that kind of like the show we just had or the thing we went into? Kind of like, because I think about the highs and lows. And when I think about you guys and how I reflect on it, it's like there's got to be so many highs. But like even with any of the bands, has there been a place and a time where you've been like, that was either scary or the most horrible thing I've ever experienced?
There was a transition when we first started getting guarantees in Messthetics, when we've got a booking agent. I was booking the band, and then I was like, okay, well, let's get a booking agent. And then it was like, just to get from point A to point B, you'd on a Monday night, you'd take a guarantee in a place that was like, oh, this is weird. This place gave us the money and everything was fine, but it was just basically like playing like a TGI Fridays or something like that. Like that, there is this like movement up into that next realm where you're just like, this all works, but does it work? And nothing horrendous. The skies didn't fall, but it doesn't feel like the right match, that kind of thing. And that was something that more later in life that I started to like, we should talk about it, just talk about it more and try to sort out, just use your spidey sense. If it's not feeling like the vibe, if it's not feeling like the right venue, for you, then don't do it. That happens occasionally, not a ton. I work with Timmy Hefner, who I love to death. I mean, he's, we can confide in each other and rely on each other. I've said this to him many times. Like, if you could just do the whole planet for me, I would be so fucking psyched. A level of trust and discourse, it's just the same thing as being friends with somebody. I mean, really, it's like, because you're really just, you have to be able to say what you feel. This does not feel right. I'm not into it. Messthetics has been really great because we've been able to we just do whatever. Like those guys we'll play the Winnipeg Folk Festival. We'll play, Primavera. We'll play we'll play any rock festival or any jazz festival, any folk festival, anything. And those guys are like, yeah, you want us to jam with another band for fucking 2 hours in the middle of the afternoon before our set? Yeah, totally. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Because I love to play. Because they just love to play, Everybody, James loves to play, Anthony loves to play, Joe loves to play, and I love to play. And so we're always down for all that stuff. So it'd be pretty hard to find a place that really rubbed us the wrong way. One thing I will say, if they book us with a band that does not respect the people around them, or that is all about the industry, and it's like, oh, you're doing a dual headlining with this other band, and that band turns out to be a bunch of young ass fucking assholes,
right?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Right.
And that has happened once, and I'm not going to tell you the band. I really want to tell you.
I know.
I'm not going to tell you.
You can whisper it on the podcast. Nobody will hear.
Yeah.
The ones that I ever remember as that wake me up in the middle of the night and it hasn't happened often, but are the times where one of the bands I was in took some big money corporate gig for some dumb thing. Just oh yeah, well, cool. We won't have to tour for a little bit or whatever. Menor Astroman got offered to play this Linux convention in San Jose, and it was a lot of money. And I was like, okay, but if we do it, we're not going to take anything.
How the hell did that even happen?
I don't know.
Insane.
I don't know. And
I
I was like, I'm not taking anything. I'm not even taking drumsticks. And so we get there and this guy shows up. The PA is like super like weird, more like an AV, like college team kids.
PA on sticks.
And all the sticks that they had got for me were timbali sticks that were flexing.
That is on you, dude. That is so on
I know. And all the tables were 50 yards away. Oh, yeah. And he wanted to just wear the Penguin logo shirt while he played. And then I knew it was going in a bad place when he said, well, you guys were going to go last, but I think actually we'll put you on right before the Bill Gates impersonator. And I was just like, and we finally played, and everybody was 50 yards away, still with their fingers in their ears. It was, and we went back to the hotel, and it was one of those hotels with a shared door. And I just remember going into the other guy's room, and we sat down on the bed with this really defeated feeling, and we watched all of Friday the 13th Part 3 without anybody saying anything.
What a low.
It was a low. Yeah, it was rough. So sometimes I don't know.
The short answer is no, Ryan. I've never done that.
I just wanted to get that story out of him. That was
no.
So
Brendan, your soul is much cleaner than mine. I know it for a fact.
Well, I think
oh my
just
God.
real quick on that point, I do think you mentioned Timmy by name. And it's like what I love about Timmy is there's just like that common ground, that reference point. It's just like he's someone like, no bullshit. You understand where I come from. I understand, like all the stuff that it's just like you can just cut through. And with the artists he works with and how he operates, it's just like, man, those are too few and far between. I'm glad you mentioned him because that is it's always a relief to pick up the phone and go, man, you get it. And you look out for your artists. There needs to be way more people like that for sure.
You have to, these are all relationships.
Totally.
Like, dude, I've known both of you guys for so long. And it's all about relationships for everybody.
Totally.
Everybody does just, because artists need people like you and people like Timmy. Honestly, all of us need the help. If we're trying to leave the living room and go out and play some shows, we need people on the ground, for sure, everywhere.
I think all of us that have toured kind of have an instinct to go wherever people will have us all over the world and almost find like our species of people, those people that collect records and are inspired by art and music and will have you sleep on their floor. And, I almost feel like I have a whole world of a family that even some people that I just met for one day, that I still remember so well. And that's what it's all about. You influenced a lot of that in my life and Ryan's and so many people. So
absolutely, yeah.
We can't thank you enough for doing this, Brent. It was real special, quite an honor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, it's an honor for me. Thank you. It's great to see you guys again.
Cool.
Yeah, I hope to, and we'll see you down on your home turf coming up.
Please.
At some point soon.